Hey, team players, welcome back to another conversation with local football flavor, breaking down the fantasy 10th round, according to ESPN, as we're recording this here in June. And one of the things that I need to emphasize here with everyone is that Bob and I are telling you people that win leagues. We're not in this to win week 1 or win October. This is about winning leagues. We have a history of doing it. And that's what we share this information. And when you watch us during the season, we have a history of making people a lot of money throughout the course of the year. And that's what we do. That being said, we're not going to be the run-of-the-mill, just praise everyone. And if that's what you're looking for, there's other places to do it. You're going to get the real answers here. I started last episode about talking about why you should never draft Tua. And here are 3 better examples at the quarterback position. Now, for the 10th round, Bob, this is about when I start settling in saying, hey, I think a quarterback now start becoming worth it. Because as we see, the wide receivers are starting to get pulled a little bit thin. And it's like, all right, what do we want to look at? So as I look at this group, Watson to me is the question mark that people are going to say, is he worth investing in? Is he not? Obviously, Cleveland went all in with him. Mm-hmm. When we look at his results from last season, they were certainly not fun to write home about. And they really did bring up the questions of having a 700-day hiatus between playing football games. Does that put indelible rust upon your soul? And the long story short is it might have, and it might have in a big way. Watson, to me, is one of these guys that if you're comfortable holding a roster spot on your bench as a pure quarterback, then letting one fly on Watson, I completely understand. Because he has the upside potential to just take over football. I mean, he really does. And he's done it before. Even on a losing team, he can give you great garbage time quarterbacking because he's incredibly talented. His defense, slightly better at stopping the run, but can't stop the run to save his life, is Watson's number one problem, aside from the fact that they took away Hunt. And a lot of the running game or passing to the running game was done through Hunt at Cleveland. So we look at Cleveland's team overall, they're screaming we're going to throw the ball more. They're absolutely going in that direction to give it to Watson. Mm-hmm. So you can make an argument for the upside, but in terms of fantasy, I got 2 other guys on here I'd rather have right now if I want to play them week in and week out, both in Dak and in Daniel Jones. And that's caveat here. If you're in the kind of league that doesn't differentiate between passing touchdowns and rushing touchdowns, Daniel Jones loses all of the edge I'm about to discuss. But if you're in a league where you differentiate between the two, Daniel Jones is a completely viable option. Because as we've broken down on game film before, Daniel Jones is one of these quarterbacks, much like other running quarterbacks in the league, that if he doesn't see what he wants, he just scrambles. And unlike a Watts or unlike a Lamar or a Fields, people don't worry about Daniel Jones. So he gets like a lazy 5 yards all the time. And it's kind of weird, but defense to just allow it to happen. And when I look at it going, he's a very viable quarterback in the world of fantasy. Both you and I agree the Giants are not going to be a good football team this year. They're going to take a massive step back. And in general, throwing the ball is an advantage in those cases.
I don't think they're going to take a massive step back, but I think
record-wise they are.
Record-wise, I think that that's going to be true. But as a team, as a unit, I think that they're going to see some growth, and I think that that's important.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's possible.
I don't think their growth is going to come hand in hand with Dallas or with Philadelphia, which then would set their record back.
But, mostly it's because they're playing a much harder schedule than last year.
Now, as you look at the players on this grouping, obviously these 3 quarterbacks stand out the most to you.
Mm-hmm.
Dak Prescott had a down year last year. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, but he finished as a QB2 in most leagues the previous year, or at least in 2019.
And they showed you that they're throwing the ball more.
So you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, is Dak going to be able to come back? Well, yes. The schedule the schedule is hard this year. It's not a blessing for the East to draw what they drew, but
it's also not the worst in football. It's going to be middle of the road.
Yeah, but I think he could come back. However, I'm staying away from all three of these quarterbacks.
I get that.
I think that in this round, this is a good opportunity to pick up potentially a guy that you could serve as a trade piece to get another high-powered weapon.
So a high upside guy.
So the reason I say that is your bench is super important, but you want to maximize your starters' potentials. So which of these guys, if they have a good game, am I more likely going to be able to trade for another player? And there's a couple of the names that come out on this list here. George Pickens is one of them. And Njoku is another name that pops up to me on this list here. Most of the other names on this list to me in their current situations and current iterations are forgettable. Jeff Wilson, with what we think the Delvin Cook situation is, with what we know that the situation with Jeff Wilson was last year, undraftable.
Yeah, even if Cook doesn't go there, I don't want Wilson.
Juju Smith-Schuster, if you believe in Mac Jones, then you if you believe in Mac Jones, and I'm speaking to those of you that believe in Mac Jones.
So there's 6 people who live in Boston.
If you believe in Mac Jones, then you're going to believe in Juju, because Juju is perfectly capable of putting up 10 catches for 45 yards.
He is.
And that would be 14 points, which is perfectly fine in a PPR league. If that's what you want to stick your handle to, I think that you could, but I don't think he's going to be a piece that could get you another piece later on.
No.
Jacoby Myers, similar situation. Hunter Renfrow may or may not be traded. They lost Darren Waller. They still have Jacobs. They still have Devontae Adams, but they also have Jimmy Garoppolo. So
that's the problem.
So you're looking at it and you say, is Jacoby Myers a potential guy that I want on my team? I see Jacoby Myers' ceiling being a game where he could get 7 catches for 89 yards and a touchdown. But I see his floor on a week-to-week basis potentially being 3 catches for 25 yards.
Yeah,
I don't want that.
So here's my problem with both of them. Both Juju and Myers. They both are, Myers especially, needs to have some verticality to get himself open. Because Myers is a better down the field get open. Juju is more of a sit in a hole type of receiver and just hit me with the ball. The problem with New England's offense is they have no vertical push, so there's not going to be as many big holes where Juju can just sit in. And that's going to really hinder his overall possibilities. There's no speed threat in the New England pass corps counting their tight ends. And Myers has the same problems as Adams. He's a fast guy with a quarterback who can't throw the ball downfield. I've said this like 6 times now. The only Raider I will possibly consider is Renfrow. He gets open in tight windows and catches low down the field ball. Low A-dot, that's Renfrow. That's Jimmy G. Those two are a pairing. The rest of the Raiders, no. And New England, again, with the exception of Stevenson, is one of these teams where it's like, I don't want to be touching there.
Now, the 2 players that I think out of all of these players that you could at some point in the season package to upgrade to a more important piece of your pie. And this is the reason I say that, is that having a bench is great. But if those bench players, if you're never playing them and you're only playing them for your bye week, you're missing out on potential lots of other points.
Yeah, this is where you should start doing the swing for the fences. 10th round on.
So George Pickens' ceiling
is unlimited.
Is extremely high. That is to say also that there's still Pat Freiermuth on the team. Deontay Johnson's still there. And they also have Allen Robinson.
Well, they are talking about Pickens becoming the one this year. But transitioning him to take Johnson's targets.
This is why
which would get him about 8 or 9 a game.
This is why I say this about Pickens, is because the Steelers didn't score a lot of touchdowns last year.
No, they didn't. One of the worst red zones ever.
Their wide receivers didn't score basically any touchdowns.
He was the only receiver who did score a touchdown.
And his targets, there were games where he wasn't really even targeted, which is concerning. However, this is a new year, a new year to learn about
sophomore
each other.
Growth. We talked about that with Burks.
there's a good chance that if you're sitting here and George Pickens is available, he's going to be the highest value guy on the board for you. I think George Pickens.
This group, yeah.
I think George Pickens is going. This is right around where he should get drafted, particularly considering John Dotson, Brandon Cooks. They're all very similar situations. But the guy I do want to talk about, and the guy that I really, really like from this list, and I think that this round, in the 10th round, is perfectly acceptable to take a tight end, is David Njoku.
If you're going to take one, he's got upside.
David Njoku is extremely athletic. He gets hurt. That is true.
Mm-hmm.
However, Deshaun Watson loves throwing the ball to tight ends in the red zone.
That he does.
21 touchdowns in Deshaun Watson's career have gone to tight ends in the red zone.
And he's huge. Njoku is huge.
We know that Cleveland can move the ball.
Yeah.
Cleveland, with Jacoby Brissett, ended up in the red zone more times than we care to even mention.
It was weird. Defense couldn't finish the game for them. If they would have had a halfway decent defense, they would have been the playoffs. That offense was playoff worthy.
And for the same reason that I say, if you believe in certain players, if you believe in Deshaun Watson to turn around and have a good year here, it is not out of the realm of possibility that you're sitting here with David Njoku, who could go off one week, have 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. Boy, isn't that a great opportunity for you to trade him for a piece that you're looking for? Even if you don't trade him, this is a perfectly acceptable time to get a high upside, high athletic guy who's going to perform. And the reason I say high upside is that Dalton Schultz's upside is very minimal, depending on what we see out of the quarterback position.
Very minimal.
And then Evan Ingram is in a dogfight for targets between Ridley.
With Ridley showing up, he got hurt.
With Ridley, Kirk, Etienne.
Yeah.
And
I don't like Ingram's situation. I like him as a player. I don't like his situation.
And so Njoku has a clear path where you have Donovan Peoples-Jones, you have Amari Cooper, you have Chubb. This is a standard team, standard setup. Mm-hmm. All of these guys are going to get targets, and who knows how it's going to shake out. Granted, Njoku can go off and go and throw up a crapshoot of a game for two receptions and 17 yards. And
every tight end is capable of that, of giving you the 3 catches, 10 yards.
But out of this grouping of players, he is the least likely to disappoint.
Well, give me your list here, Bob. Break them down for me.
So my top 2, obviously, in this list is Njoku and Pickens. These are the two players in this grouping of players that I am very much interested in. That is then followed up by Dak Prescott. I think Dak Prescott is due for a rebound. Everything points to this situation with a high octane offense that it could be more passing, and I think that that's really good for Dak Prescott. Followed that with Deshaun Watson. It is an unknown what we're going to see out of Deshaun Watson, but if he returns to anything that he was before and not on the field at least, I think you're looking at a really good selection. Again, I really wouldn't take any of these 3 quarterbacks here in this situation. Then I'd go Daniel Jones, but I feel that there's still quarterbacks on the board that we haven't talked about yet that gives me no reason to draft any of the 4 quarterbacks that we mentioned in Tua, Watson, Prescott, or Jones at this point.
You mean in this part of the draft?
In this part of the draft. And then you got a whole bunch of people that I'm not even thinking about, that I'm not even drafting. And this is how I would rank them. I would rank Juju next. Mm-hmm. So I'd have Njoku, Pickens, Watson, Prescott, Jones, Juju, just for the sheer fact that he is the number 1 wide receiver.
He's going to get volume.
He should get volume. He's capable of getting volume. I just don't believe in that passing offense. Followed that up with Evan Ingram. I think the targets are going to be smaller this year, but I think that Evan Ingram is good enough that he's still going to be considered. And if we take a look at just targets within the red zone, so if we take a look at the targets in the red zone last year, and we go to Jacksonville, and you go to tight end here, he had 9 targets in the red zone and turned that into 2 touchdowns. So it's
not great, but
it's perfectly possible that when he's on the field, that they'll use him in a bunch of situations. So the opportunities, he's on the field a lot. The opportunities are going to be there. And then in no uncertain order, these players are undraftable. Jacoby Myers, Dalton Schultz, Jeff Wilson Jr. Do not touch those 3 players with a 10-foot pole. Let somebody who hasn't done the research draft those guys. They're going to think Schultz last year, good year, bad situation this year. They're going to say, oh, Jacoby Myers, I know about what's he doing. Don't draft him. He's on the Raiders. We don't think that the Raiders offense is going to be super proficient. And Jeff Wilson is, I don't even know why ESPN ranked him here.
Well, Jeff Wilson's the number 1 in Miami on the books right now. If you do end up with Jeff Wilson, trade him before week 5.
You're not even going to be able to trade him.
No, my point. He's going to have one big game in the beginning of the year. Whatever chips you can get for him at that point, trade him in. I agree with you. So as we're looking at the 10th round here, it's kind of your give me someone who could give me a home run and see what it could be. And I agree with that mindset coming into this, Bob. So for me, I believe the biggest home run potential on this list is Watson. But because it's so much of a crazy potential, I want to make sure I get another decent quarterback quickly if he's my only one. But I don't mind Watson being a guy on my team who could go off and be like, ooh, people like shiny things, and Watson has potential of being shiny.
Sorry about that.
Not gonna.
That was an advertisement.
Advertisement.
Something came up there. Advertisement. But anyway.
All right. Let's reset
back
this.
to your rankings here.
So I do believe
that's how unimportant this list of players is.
Well, I was going to edit this all out, so I want to know that.
That's how unimportant.
So, as I agree with you, Bob, the 10th round is when you need to go for a home run and try to catch something amazing. I do believe that Watson gives you that for a couple of reasons. First is that he's going to have the whole off season and not have to worry about half a training camp bringing in the number 2. It'll be his team from the beginning. I believe there's a reasonable thing to say he could be there. And for me, it's worth the roll of the dice, especially if I know I'm getting another quarterback or already have one. Pickens, to me, I believe, is by far and away the most talented individual of the non-quarterbacks on this list. You remember some of those crazy catches he made last year. Pickens, they've already said they want to involve the ball share more. The downside with the Steelers overall is they want to become more of a running team this year than they were before. So his overall Steelers target share may go down. So it's a concern there, although his individual target share, I believe, will go up. When we look at who would be next on the list, it's going to be Jones for me. And the reason I have him ahead of Dak and Jones is at my 3rd hole is last year the Cowboys were either the highest or second highest scoring offense in the league, and Dak's fantasy numbers did not represent that. Now, granted, they got rid of Zeke, and they are going to be passing the ball more this year, so there's reason to believe there's a Dak upside. Mm-hmm. But I believe he's much higher than any of these tight ends. I live in the world where, aside from the one in Kansas City, no tight end is special to me, and I'd rather basically use them at my end of my draft pool to just get 2 of them and not care, because to me, there's really not much of a difference. 5 catches, 5 touchdowns, and a touchdown is basically the max of any of these tight ends. Sure, you might get a week or 2 where they get 2 tight ends or 2 touchdowns and people think they're special, but none of them to me look like it's worth investing in. There's no upside explosion, and Juju ain't giving it to me. Jeff Wilson, maybe. I think by default I'd have to put Jeff Wilson next because he could give me explosion.
So I wanna go back to what you said about Dak Prescott. In a season where he played 12 games.
Mm-hmm.
All right. 17 of his 23 touchdowns came in the red zone.
Oh, yeah.
So this team is going to get down there. It's going to score. And so when I look at,
I believe they got a better receiving core this year too.
When I look at Dallas and how that quarterback is ranked there, there's a good chance that people are going to draft Dak a couple rounds higher.
Mm-hmm.
When there's a quarterback run and they see that all the quarterbacks are going, well, who's left?
There's plenty of good quarterbacks left.
Dak. But like you said, you're not satisfied with the numbers, and that's,
I'm not.
For all intents and purposes. That's.
I'm not satisfied with this group. No, and I think that's something that we're going to be going on. This is not the way you want your 10th round to look. A lot of these guys are undraftable, and you don't want to look at them, and that's the way it is. And like I said, that's how we tell people how it is here at a Local Football Flavor. So please join us here if you haven't already. Click subscribe, become a team player. Click like, click share with your friends. And if you are interested to be in one of our best ball leagues, leave your contact information. We'll reach out to you with those details as we get closer to kickoff.